Hi, I'm Joe from Fish Ranger, and today I want to clear up a common weather myth that I hear out there a lot. So a lot of people believe that weather stations are used to forecast the weather, or that you can only forecast the weather where there's a weather station. Well, that's not true. Weather stations are used to measure the weather, so take observations of the weather at the current point in time. So here's a picture of a weather station. So weather stations have devices that let them measure wind speed and direction, temperature, humidity, barometric pressure, and the amount of rain that's fallen. They take that information and they send it back to headquarters where it gets saved on a computer. That's all that weather stations do. So why do we want weather stations? Well, weather stations let us know what the weather was over a given day or at a current point in time. So when you look at Fish Ranger wind charts, for example, and you see the average speed and gust speed lines, those readings are from the weather stations. So the Bureau of Meteorology, they operate all the weather stations around Australia. At the moment, there's about 820, although they're always adding new ones and getting rid of old ones. So here we have a picture of Port Phillip Bay, for example, and these red points are where there's weather stations. So here's one at South Channel Pile, here's one at Fawkner Beacon, Laverton, Wilson Point, Geelong Racecourse, and so on. And all those weather stations do is just record the weather at points in time and send it back to get saved on a computer. They don't forecast the weather. So while I'm here clearing this up, I'll also add that satellites don't forecast the weather either. So satellites are used to record sea surface temperature and sometimes land temperature, and they then send that back to get saved on a computer as well. So how is the weather forecast then? Well, back at BOM headquarters, they have a computer that gets fed a whole bunch of data into it. Now, measurements from all the weather stations around Australia get fed into this computer, as well as data from satellites and other things like weather balloons. Now, the supercomputer then goes through and calculates what the weather's going to be across the country. And the way it does that is as follows. So firstly, it'll calculate what the weather is at a certain point, and then it'll do the next point and the next point, and so on. Now, I'm just going to quickly do this. So at the end of that process, the computer has calculated a unique forecast at each of these points across this entire region. Now, the distance between these points is referred to as the forecast resolution. And the smaller that distance, the better the forecast. So BOM's best forecast data in Australia has a resolution of 3 kilometres in Vic and Tas and 6 kilometres in other states. So in Vic, for example, the distance between these is 3 kilometres. So this file is the way that forecast data is supplied to weather sites and apps. So if a weather site or app wants to know the forecast here or wants to show a forecast there, just read the forecast out at that point, shows it on screen. If you want to know the forecast here, just read the forecast out, show it on screen. Or if you want to know an in-between point, it may take an average between the two forecast points and show that on screen. So it's a really simple process. There's no interpretation of the data or applying algorithms to make it more accurate. That's not true. You just read the data out and you show it on screen. So to recap, weather stations and satellites don't forecast the weather. They just take observations of the weather at the current point in time. Forecasting is done by computers that take that observational data, as well as some other things, and then forecast it across an entire region by creating this grid file. So I'm Joe, it's been great talking to you. I encourage you to get onto my YouTube channel and check out my other videos. Thanks and bye for now.